Stop wasting time. Either get in the Eva or get out.
Get in the Ava. Launch Ava!
Evangelion. A series so historic and so prestigious, I had to say it all woo-wee like that to open this video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Berk the Gaijin, and dear friends, I have a question for you. Have you ever missed out on a seminal anime that fundamentally defined how millions of weebs view the genre? Got around to finally watching it far too late in life, only to have now watched the full anime, not understood the ending, watched the film that is supposed to clear up things, only to be more confused, resulting in you having to go and read a number of Reddit threads to understand just what the hell you experienced. That's right. Today we are going to be talking about Eva, as well as the follow-up movie, End of Evangelion, as this basically serves as the true final episodes to the show, concluding the story of the Nerve Defense Force and the end of humanity in the form that we know it. This brilliant show was brought to us by the mad genius that is Hideaki Anno, who provides us with a beautiful commentary on the idea of individuality, the self, what it means to be part of something, and what it means to fundamentally be human, using imagery and subtext in such a beautiful fashion that results in this truly breathtaking story, brought to life by the brilliance of two studios. Those being Tatsunoko and Gainax, who are individually responsible for their first work Space Ace, no, not that Space Ace, Speed Racer, well, yes, that Speed Racer, and Soul Taker. Meanwhile, Gainax were the ones behind Gurren Lagann, Corpse Princess, and Panty and Stocking and Garter Belt. Like performing a fusion dance, they came together to make this masterpiece. Now, as I mentioned, this was my first ever watch of Eva, and as a 26-year-old weeb who has left it far too late to actually watch this amazing and insane show, I adored it. From the characters to the premise to the big twists. I truly understand why this show is viewed in such a beloved light, and I too now have a deep love for it myself. That will absolutely result in multiple rewatches of the show, now I know exactly where it ends. Oh, fun side note. Last time I was in Tokyo, my friend took me to this really cool place called Small Worlds out in Koto City, where they had a full Eva showing, including the launch bay, the cityscape of Tokyo 3, and what I remember being a vague reenactment of Shinji's first experience with an angel. It was amazing, and so cool to see. And I'll be showing off a bunch of the pictures my friend took of the exhibit. If you're a fan of Eva, I highly recommend going and checking this place out. Hell, I had no connection to Eva at the time, and I thought it was amazing. I recently told my friend when we met up for lunch that it's retroactively one of my favorite things we did while we were there, so if you happen to be in Tokyo, I highly recommend you go and see it. But let's get back on track and, let's talk about that ending first, shall we? It's a little bit backwards, but I feel that's where we need to start. The first time I watched it all the way through, well, there's only one clip I can think of to explain just how I felt about Eva.
What? 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 What the fuck?
You see, dear viewer, I binged this show from start to finish, and I realized around the third act of this show, they just decide to stop explaining anything that is happening. I actually fell asleep while watching it at one point and woke up to see 1,000 rays in a fish tank and thought, oh, I must have missed 5 or 6 episodes. Let me go back and catch up. But to my surprise, I'd only missed maybe half an hour of the show. Only adding to my confusion is just how calm everyone is at seeing this total insanity. It appears that after the 21st episode, the flashback episode called The Birth of Nerve, it seems like the show just kind of stops explaining and expects you to infer what's going on. But in a show as open-ended to interpretation as this, it makes the show deeply deeply confusing upon your first watch through. For example, let's take this dreamy fellow here, shall we? Kaworu Nagisa is introduced as the 5th children and immediately forms a bond with Shinji. A borderline sexual bond that admittedly comes rather quickly out of left field, but strangely doesn't feel out of place in a way, given the concerning level of sexual tension that already exists between Shinji and literally every other main character in the series. But we very, very quickly learn that Kaworu is not what he seems. We learn that the reasons his sync rates are so high with the Evas is because he is actually an angel in human form? Yeah, bit of a mind blower. What's his goal? We have no idea. Does he complete it? No clue. But for some inexplicable reason, he goes from invading Nerve to asking Shinji to kill him, sending him into a bizarre existential crisis that has him question all of his existence, and the show ends. As I said, this show goes from explaining absolutely everything to explaining absolutely nothing in the space of about an episode. And it's such severe whiplash that it made me genuinely question if there was an issue with the timing of production or something. Like, maybe the budget got cut mid-production. But no. The baffling style is a result of Arno genuinely gaining a huge interest in psychology and completely altering course for the final episodes to focus on introspection and self-evaluation. It seems the changing direction was something that seems to have actually been kind of a common theme with the entire production process. For example, the initial plan was to have a whole 28 angels, but due to deadlines not being met and Arno's just general change of creative vision, it was reduced to the 17 we know and love, and the initial plan for the ending was actually turned into the movie due to all these issues. Like I said, I required no small amount of deep diving to figure out just what was actually happening in this show, and what message it was trying to get across, and well, now for the sake of helping out any other bewildered Eva fans know just what the show is, well, showing, here's a very mild breakdown from start to finish of just what is happening behind the scenes in both the show and end of Eva. Now, I don't intend on doing a deep dive of what I feel is explained in the show, or really the show in general. I want to focus on a lot of the things that the show does not outright show us. So, for things like the formation of Nerve, for example, I feel it's pretty adequately explained, but I will go a little into what the expedition was prior to Nerve, and why the events of the show actually kick off in the first place. As is evident by a lot of the imagery, the universe of Eva follows a pseudo-Christian lore with a healthy amount of other ideologies and general sci-fi-edness thrown in for good measure, which you will see with the immediate inclusion of some relatively Jewish lore in the creation story of the world of Evangelion. At the start of existence, a group of aliens, known as the First Ancestral Race, created 7 seeds of life, designed to bring life to distant planets. After an extinction-level event occurred on their own planet, the only 2 we need to focus on for now is Adam and Lilith. I won't do that voice the entire time. Both of these beings were transported in great spheres, somewhat resembling moons. Adam was a fruit of life, and his sphere was white, and Lilith the fruit of knowledge, whose sphere was black, each coming packaged with a spear of Longinus. You may notice the way I just pronounced Longinus. Yeah, Longinus, one, isn't correct phonetically, and also sounds dumb, so I'm gonna go with the Japanese pronunciation of Longinus. The seeds were sent out into the universe in order to preserve the legacy of the first ancestral race, and each had a unique rule. The planet that would receive the seed of Adam would have a life in the form of angels, all born of Adam's DNA, while the seed of Lilith would bring knowledge, which allowed the children of Lilith, known as Lilin, or us humans, to thrive. Earth initially ended up getting a seed of Adam that crashed into Antarctica. If you're wondering why they were split up, well, you see, if a being was to possess multiple of these seeds, they would effectively become a godlike being, just like the first ancestral race. Hence the divvying up. This leads us to the first impact. That being when the seed of Lilith, or Black Moon, crashed into Earth where modern-day Japan is now, bringing with it the potentiality for humans to exist, and that glorious, glorious LCL. That is what kick-started all of evolution, and gave good old Darwin a job. This also resulted in anything that is born of the LCL sharing at least a smidge of Lilith's DNA. This, of course, created a pretty major problem. That being that no world is supposed to have 2 seeds. But good news! A failsafe exists. Destroying one with their accompanying Spear of Longinus will prevent catastrophe. And here's the bad news. Lilith's spear was destroyed during the crash landing. Bugger. The solution? Use the remaining spear to incapacitate Adam and keep him in suspended animation. Humans get to thrive, and no seed has to be destroyed. A win-win. This is why the Katsuragi expedition finds him impaled when they first discover Adam in the geofront in Antarctica. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, if you need to combine Lilith and Adam DNA to cause it, Berk, what created the second impact? Well, my dear friend, that happened during the experiments of the Katsuragi expedition, and their attempt to merge a donor with Adam. A very, very dumb move indeed. Remember when I mentioned that every living thing has some of Lilith's DNA? And, as we've seen, when the two come into contact, things get a little, explosive. This was the second impact. An impact so big, it wiped out half the world's population. This merging also created new life, in the form of everyone's favorite out-of-nowhere boy, Kawaru Nagisa. Now this boy was incredibly special because, like I said earlier, he's secretly an angel. But more importantly, because of this merging, he actually holds the very soul of Adam. This event is also what turns Adam back into an embryo, as we see later on in the show. Alright, huddle up. Let's take a brief pause to ensure everyone's on the same page. Here's a real quick rundown so far. Okay, super powerful aliens form the universe, create 7 seeds of life, Adam and Lilith being our focus. Those seeds are spread randomly throughout the galaxy. Adam brings angels, Lilith brings humans. Accidentally, both end up on Earth. First impact happens. Adam is placed in suspended animation. Life develops, humanity discovers Adam, humans do what humans do and mess with it, cause second impact. Kawaru is born, Adam becomes the embryo, half humanity gone in the blink of an eye. All caught up? Good. Because now we get into what the show is actually showing us. And this is where it gets confusing. 3 years after the second impact, Garen is formed and picks up where the Katsuragi expedition left off. Only this time, everyone's favorite deadbeat dad, Gendo Ikari, is in charge, and he uses the DNA of Adam to create his dream down in the geofront. The Ava series. These brilliant pieces of machinery are built using human engineering and a little bit of Adam DNA. Curiously though, one is not built with Adam's DNA, but is in fact built with Lilith's. That being everyone's favorite purple monstrosity, Eva 01. And, as we all know, every shady secret weapons project are worthless without a shadow government organization to run them. Enter SEAL, who oversee what Gendo is doing, while secretly working on their own goals, keeping the soul and embryo of Adam under lock and key for later use. A year or so into things, though, a tragic event occurs that sees Yui Ikari, Gendo's wife and mother of protagonist of the show Shinji, die while running some contact experiments on Unit 01. She dissolves into LCL, and her soul actually ends up inhabiting the core of Eva 01. Unbeknownst to anyone, this had always been her plan, so she could continue to live within the Eva long after Third Impact, as she says in the end of Evangelion, as eternal proof of humanity's existence. Grief-stricken, Gendo does anything he can to bring Yui back. But while he does fail to do that, he actually creates something entirely new. He creates everybody's favorite socially anxious pilot, Rei Ayanami. A perfect blend of both Lilith and Yui's DNA, who becomes the soul of Lilith, although it's never outright said in the show. Unfortunately, Gendo still can't let go of his wife, so develops what he calls the Human Instrumentality Project, a plan to bring about Third Impact, so all humans will be joined into one being inside of Lilith's egg, turning all into one, and returning his wife to him. Somehow. It's never really explained how he plans to do that, but it's kind of an underpants gnome situation here. SEAL sign off on the idea, but secretly plan on being the only ones to actually participate, so that they can become gods together. Garen rebrands as Nerve, and boom, we launch into the first episode. I realize a lot of what I've just said is a lot to take in, but if you've watched the show, this should have given you that aha moment I had when first reading through a breakdown of it. Because this is all info we know. The show is just really bad at outright telling us at certain points in order to make what is happening clear. This is why Nerve is created, to both protect and destroy humanity at the same time. But Berk, I hear you cry, why on earth are angels so hell-bent on attacking Tokyo 3? What is their actual goal? It's actually a question that bugged me the majority of the show, because they never outright say why the angels are actually attacking. Well, and here's potential aha moment number 2 for those of you that maybe missed this when they say it in the show, because I did. They're trying to get to Lilith to cause Third Impact. Yeah, this thing is actually Lilith and not Adam, like Kaji outright says at one point. The only time we learn this is the case is when Kaworu realizes it's her while he stood in front of her. Well, floating in front of her, before going and facing his end at the hand of Shinji. Oh, and speaking of Kaji, he's the reason that the angels attack while he and bestest girl Asuka are on their way to Japan, because he has the Adam embryo from the geofront in Antarctica, which makes it even more baffling that he mistakes the pair later in the show. But I digress. With the embryo, Nerve manages to obtain its Spear of Longinus and uses it to now decommission Lilith for the time being. This is until the angel Ariel arrives, and Rei has to yeet the spear into orbit to kill it, leaving Seal up a certain creek with 0 paddle, starting the clock towards Third Impact. Realizing they're now on a time limit, Seal send in Kaworu to put things into motion. The motives are somewhat unclear, and kind of hard to follow at this point, as they aren't outright stated, but as far as I can tell, it seems like Seal genuinely thought that the being in Central Dogma was in fact Adam. Or they at the very least knew Adam was at Nerve HQ, because while Kaji was transporting it, he was actually a triple agent who told them what was happening with Gendo the entire time. Either way, they send Kaworu in to reunite body and soul of Adam into one. However, upon realizing it's Lilith and not Adam, as Adam at this point is still an embryo and now embedded in Gendo's hand for some reason, Kaworu gives himself up to Shinji to be crushed in Eva 01's hand. Why'd he do this instead of initiating the third impact by merging with Lilith? I have absolutely no idea. Some argue that Seal think that all 17 angels need to die to bring about the third impact, because that was what was written in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Some think that the brief strand of humanity that passed between Shinji and Kaworu was so powerful that Kaworu completely about-faced after realizing Adam wasn't there, and wants to let Shinji decide the Earth's fate. So this is me now just thinking in real time while recording this. I wrote this script a while ago, but now I'm thinking about it. Potentially the reason that Kaworu doesn't merge with Lilith is because he doesn't actually have any of Adam's DNA in him. He has the pure DNA of Lilith, but just is the soul of Adam, which is why in the end of Evangelion film, we see his form and also Rei's, because they're both the souls of the individual being. I don't know if that makes sense or if that tracks necessarily, but as I sit here thinking about it, that actually makes sense, because if he merged with Lilith, nothing would happen because he is Lilin, technically speaking, and has Lilith's DNA and none of Adam's. So maybe that's why? This is what I meant earlier in this video by this show is not good at explaining certain things at a certain point, and it is just incredibly confusing. The end result, however, is simple. All 17 angels are destroyed, and Shinji has what can only be described as a complete psychotic break that sees him have a totally internal battle about self-acceptance and being happy in one's skin. He triumphs, and, well, that wraps up arguably the most confusing anime of all time. For all of 5 minutes until the end of Evangelion starts. Now, it's something that's relatively debated within the community whether or not this ending is retconned at the start of the film, or if this is actually Shinji going through the initial stages of the Humanity Instrumentality project, as End of Evangelion skips back 2 episodes and picks back up after the destruction of the 17th angel. I personally prefer to think that this is the initial stages of the project, as it's got such a heavy focus on what Shinji sees as his own flaws, leading to him deciding whether humanity should live with its flaws or unite as one flawless being. As we see at the start of the film, Seal turns on Nerve and everything goes to hell in a handbasket. Our beloved Asuka is killed by the mass-produced Evas that are all equipped with a Spear of Longinus, all created in secret by Seal for this very moment. And, well, it gets dark. They actually begin eating her, all while Shinji watches, resulting in him losing his mind, and somehow he resummons the true Spear of Longinus from orbit to destroy all of the MPEs, only for them to heal, regenerate, and trap him in a giant AT field. Meanwhile, down in the Geofront, the third impact finally begins, with Gendo shoving his hand into Rei? and merging the soul of Lilith with the body of Adam. That's the little embryo that he's got sewn into his hand for some reason. Hoping this will give him the power to return his wife to life. Unfortunately for Gendo, Rei betrays him and merges with Lilith, finally combining both Adam and Lilith into one being. Rei becomes a Colossus, kickstarting the end and bringing about the Human Instrumentality Project. She heads up to the surface and, along with Ava 1, the MPEs, and the Spear of Longinus, begin ascending into the heavens, all merging into one being, becoming a reincarnation of the first ancestral race, turning into the Great Tree of Life, producing an anti-AT field so strong that it ends up wiping out all of humanity and turning them into that glorious LCL and linking everybody on Earth into one being. Much like the end of the anime, Shinji has an entirely internal struggle again. Either remove all flaws in humans and get rid of all the pain he has ever experienced, or allow humanity to return and let it make its own mistakes, but ultimately be free beings. In the end, he decides that Tennyson was right. 'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. And although he will feel pain again, it means that every relationship he ever makes going forward will be real and have genuinely true feelings. Ultimately, he allows humanity to redefine itself. All everyone has to do to be reborn is imagine themselves in their own heart, whatever on earth that means. The first one to do so is, surprisingly, Asuka. And as he did in his internal struggle, he begins strangling her. But instead of meeting his attack with hostility like she did in his mind, and how things would have been in the Human Instrumentality Project, she gently caresses his face with love, proving that Shinji did the right thing, and proving that love can exist, even in fear. And also showing Asuka's deep, deep love for him that she spent the entire show trying to hide all at once. And she didn't hide it that well, did she? The curtain falls, and we are left with one of the most confusingly beautiful creations in the history of anime. And that is the best I can possibly do to fill in the blanks of just what on earth is going on, and explain the things that weren't outright said in the show, or the things that are going on behind the scenes that are kind of required to understand what on earth is going on. And short of attempting to make this a 3-hour video, that's as limited as I intend on going. This is a lot to wrap your head around, but once you do, it makes the show so much easier to follow and understand just what is happening, and truly elevates the show to that status of GOAT it deserves. I honestly think that my favorite thing about the show is how it's just one big expression of Anno's struggle with depression after his first 2 major projects fell flat on their face and crashed and burned. And it also ties together basically every possible belief system into one insane mix that somehow works really well. I also really love the imagery of the show. The heavy use of the Christian iconography in some of the most death metal ways is so cool. Plus, there's a pretty hefty tie into Shintoism, with the spears of Longinus being clear nods to the lances of Izanagi and Izanami. The obscene level of crosses used when the Human Instrumentality Project happens, and seeing the world just vanish in front of our eyes, as well as seeing the mighty Yggdrasil be the final form before becoming the Great Orb, it just ties everything together beautifully. But I think my absolute favorite part of all of the imagery shown in Eva is that Anno himself said that the majority of it means absolutely nothing to the overall canon of Eva. He just thought it would look so rad to have the world flood with crosses when the impact occurs. And it's why Anno may just be one of my favorite creators. He just did stuff because it would look cool, which may be one of the most relatable things that I've ever seen out of an anime or mangaka. Ultimately, this show is now simultaneously one of my most beloved and weirdly hated shows I've ever watched. The sheer confusion I personally felt in the first time of watching it was actually amazingly fun. And I got to have that much more fun after I learned what was actually going on. But I hate how limited the world building had to be, and how little we actually have of Evangelion in the world, compared to a lot of the other creations through the years. I really heavily recommend everyone go and either watch it for the first time, because if you've watched this far into the video without watching it for the first time, you have absolutely no idea what on earth is going on. Or more likely, rewatch the show. Because it's such a beautiful analogy of what it means to face your fears, to feel different, to question reality, question what you're told, question gender norms, question sexual barriers, stand up for what you believe, and, well, just generally learn it's okay to be different in a world that feels almost designed to prevent individuality. It shows what it means to be human, and, well, right now, I think we need a lot more Shinjis in this world, because there's a depressing number of Gendos. But I think that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my very, very oversimplification of what is happening in Eva, despite it being, no doubt, incredibly confusing. I want to thank each and every one of you that subscribed in the last month or so, and everyone that watched the Digimon and Death Note videos and joined in the discussion about them, as well as all my gaming videos I've had in between them. Can you believe this dumb channel of some Welsh idiot talking to himself about anime now has 61 subs? I mean, when I started writing the script, I was just about to hit 50, but now we're well on our way to 100. And I just want to say from the very, very bottom of my heart, thank you again for subscribing. The obscene smile on my face as I watch people actually see my content, and honestly just observe it, is immeasurable. Much less leaving comments, whether you disagree or agree with my opinions, leaving likes, and subscribing in general. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And I hope we have many, many more discussions as the years come. I know the last 2 videos have been like this, has been this kind of ending. And I don't want it to be the norm, but I just want to say thank you. For a weird dude that, you know, just kind of sits on his PC most days that I'm not at work. It means the world to me that I can say something that's worth a bit of a damn. Even if it's not worth a damn to that many people. It's worth it to me to be heard by just one person. Another little peek behind the curtain as well. I actually went to the family farm to see my parents recently, and I actually got to show them that people were watching my videos. And it just felt amazing to show them what I'd been doing, and getting to write some of this script while I had some time to myself. Kind of sitting, watching over the great rolling hills, acting like I'm an inspired author, when in reality, I'm typing out a story of total insanity to do with big mechas. I can't put into words just how happy that made me. Knowing that I'm writing something that may actually get heard by people, and much less talking about things that I love, it's immeasurably cool. And like I said, getting to do that at my parents' house and them seeing in real time things are working out a little bit in terms of the YouTube thing I've said about wanting to do for a very, very long time. It's amazing to finally have that moment of, look, it's working. So, thank you so much for just being here and listening to me ramble. I don't think you guys know just how much I appreciate every single one of you that takes the time to watch this dumb PNG face wiggle about the screen and talk at you. So thank you so, so, so much. And with that, I want to thank you so much for watching this very video. And if you liked it, all I can request is that you yeet your own spear of Longinus through the subscribe button. And make sure to slice that like button up with your progressive knife. Make sure to tell your weeby friends, family, stranger on a train, or anyone who will listen where to find the freshest of anime content right here on the Berk the Gaijin channel. Make sure to hit that bell to be notified of next time I upload. And go check out my other videos, my Digimon review, my Death Note review, or the copious hours of my voice commentating over video games. I hope wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, or generally one hell of a day. And I will see you next time. Sayonara. Bye-bye.